Hi, we're back, and I think one of the topics that we want to discuss is when you acquire Canadian citizenship. And I think Peter will more than agree with me, is the right to vote.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I think I'd like to take this opportunity, and you'll see from our website the various instruments and Peter's experience, from his activity in the act of voting. So Peter, if you could avail us to what it was like the first time you voted. What did it feel like, and what did you gain from it, and what message that you can give to our Chinese viewers as to why it is important to vote and why you see the act of voting as being a real privilege of Canadian citizenship.
Well, thank you, Peter, for your asking such a question. Honestly, I was very excited after I became a Canadian citizen and I realized that I have the voting right. Then I never missed even one voting opportunity, neither on the provincial level or the federal level. 2 years ago, I participated in a local organization, non-NGO, non-profit organization, which called it the Coalition of Pro-Voting and encouraging local Chinese to participate in the voting. And we did a lot of activities, including standing in the hallway of the entrance gate on the ferry terminal and airport, even in the central railway station in the downtown area, to letting people, particularly to encouraging local Chinese immigrants to use their voting rights. Because we checked in the record in the past several decades, according based upon the Canadian stats, the ethnic group, the Chinese ethnic group, are always among the lowest participation group.
Participation rate.
Yeah, the lower voting rates.
Right.
Yeah, even in the most recent one, the federal election last year.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom 5 electoral rating area is Richmond Central and Richmond East and Burnaby South or Vancouver South. We're highly correlated to the most densely populated Chinese ethnic group.
So, to quickly sum up on that, is that do you feel it is more advantageous for word of mouth information? I'm sure at some point it is a lack of education or a lack of having had in the past the opportunity to vote. Is it a combination of? And do you feel that it is better to be word of mouth as to the benefits of voting coming from someone of the same ethnic background?
Yeah, it's a complicated question, Peter. Not such easy black and white. I can answer your first question. Absolutely not, due to they are less educated. As far as I know, the most recent new Chinese immigrant, they are very highly educated, if not overly educated.
They are.
I.e., when they went to the street to look for a job, usually they get the answer not hired, not because they are not qualified, overqualified.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps to answer your question is the reason they don't vote because not only because they are less educated, but only shows their disinterest in participating in the voting.
So there's a certain measure of apathy?
Yeah, they made numerous excuses like it doesn't matter whom I choose or not, or I'm not familiar with those candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Or the most often time came into my ears is a lot of Chinese saying, those candidates are even not qualified than I am. Why I vote them? Usually this comparison between to the same Chinese candidates, then it shows like it's a kind of paradox. For those people in their conversation qualified to be the candidate, they are not voluntarily step out to participate in the election. And the other people say, because there are no qualified candidates, so I don't want to vote.
Okay, so we've talked about the problematics.
Yeah.
Why don't we maybe focus on solutions? Solutions generally can start as baby steps, right?
Yeah.
Agreed?
Agree.
So, having said that, what sort of things can be done within the Chinese community to start baby steps to find a solution where voter participation is at a point where it can actually make a difference? And I think Chinese voters must be made aware that your vote does count. Do you not agree?
Agree. I think maybe the answer lies two aspects. One is time. The other is, if anything happening in China, I mean, the communist regime, if has a tremendous change or significant change, it may help to resolve this lower participation rate of voting problem in Canada. Because in the last provincial election, as far as I can memorize this, 5 candidates from Taiwan in the local Chinese ethnic group, they all successfully elected. I think we call it 5 flowers, 5 young ladies actually. Because the difference between their successful rate and all those affiliate rate for those candidates from mainland China, I can say is one obvious explanation is Taiwan has more transparent political system, or they have the voting right in Taiwan. After a nationalist party came down to the dictatorship of the Chiang Kai-shek and his son, excuse me.
Yeah, if I can just interject, because you brought in Taiwan into our discussion. What is the voter participation rate in Taiwan? Is it fairly good?
Very good. In the most recent Taiwan election, generally speaking, the island-wide or nationwide in Taiwan, almost approached to 70%.
That's very good.
Yeah, that's very good. Higher than that of Canada, if I'm not wrong.
What would be the reason, in your estimation, as to such a high voter participation rate? Because in all democracies, that is a win-win. I mean, governments would gloat, any government would gloat at that sort of participation rate. I mean, that's very, very high, and that's very, very successful. So what would be the reason that Taiwanese are in favor of voter participation?
Because last year, what happened in Hong Kong, due to the extradition act to Beijing, to China, it triggered a lot of movement.
Extradition.
Yeah, extradition act. Initialized by the Hong Kong government, triggered a wide range of demonstration.
Yeah.
It has some kind of a huge impact in the Taiwan's election.
Okay.
More and more young people saying, if we want to avoid the future like Hong Kong being totally controlled by the Communist Party, we need to decide our future. We need to keep a certain kind of independence. That's why they vote. They vote the Progressive Party, which claim the independent Taiwan policy.
Do you know in the past how voter turnout is in Hong Kong? And I imagine this would be voter turnout for various municipal positions. Is voter turnout in Hong Kong relatively good? Do you know?
Oh, even greater than the 70% last year in the
Really?
Hong Kong
Okay.
municipal election.
Okay.
The result was like overwhelmingly pro-democracy. Then it's like beyond Beijing's imagination.
Okay.
Before the election, they thought they can control the municipal legislative body, but end up they totally lost.
Since this is such an important issue, I think we may be in a good position to offer closing remarks on this issue. So I'll let you go first, and then I'll go second. And these are closing remarks from your standpoint and from mine as to why it is so important to vote.
I wish within the more and more young generation, local Chinese people, they will encourage their parents to participate in the future elections. And I have a optimistic view in the future.
Good. So you're closing on optimism. I think I will close on the same optimistic tone. What I want to make clear to our Chinese and Chinese Canadian viewers is that voting is important. Your vote does count, and always vote for the best candidate. Don't vote on racial ties. Vote on the best candidate, and don't let anyone make you vote otherwise. You always vote for the best candidate for the job, the one who is the best qualified, the one who has the best track record. And in closing, if Canadians in general don't vote, I can see in the future the government might implement, like in Australia, mandatory voting, where if you do not vote, you will be fined. And the fine can come from not the non-renewal of your driver's license or etc. I think there are a lot of tools in the Australian toolkit that they used where Australia instigated mandatory voting.
I wish Canada could adopt this
You agree?
system.
You think it's a good
sooner
system?
better than later?
Yeah,
Of course, it will help
it might-
greatly to improve the participation rate.
I think so. If we want a higher participation rate, especially with the complexities of governing in this age at this time, I think yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah,
I
it
think-
will help to build up the voting habit of local Chinese people,
Exactly.
at least.
Exactly. And this I think would be a good learning experience for the Chinese community if there was in fact mandatory voting legislation.
Yes, certainly.
Great. Well, thank you, Peter, for your time on this topic.
Yeah, let's go Canada.
That's right. Go out and vote.